back to the Berg Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. With me today is Ford.
Hey, how's it going?
And Dan.
Hey, everybody.
And we are talking a little bit today about celebrations and the start of summer. We just had Memorial Day weekend, and we've got, before you said the number, what?
I know I signed at least 7 cards for people that are graduating this year that are somehow tied, either they worked here as interns or they're working here or different things. And so that's just, there's probably even more of people that we don't get those, but for the people that were close to the team. So it's
people on payroll in one form or another are graduating, 7 of them, ish. Something like that.
Yeah.
Don't ask me to name them. I know one. I got one. One of them belongs to me. But if I had to name the rest of them, I might be in trouble. So, Memorial Day is always kind of I think the unofficial kickoff of summer. Yeah. Right? Do you guys agree?
No, it's true.
Yeah.
I don't know when they say it's actually June or something. It's
June
technical.
21st is usually.
Yeah. But that's
and
that's
late. That's a solstice,
that's
right?
That's solstice. That's the best day to be on the beach, Brian. I'm not going to take us right off the rails, but
the best day because the split.
The sun to dark ratio. It's not going to get dark till 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, longest day.
Yeah.
Most sun.
You could eat 3 meals on the beach that day if you wanted to.
Okay, that's fair.
We'll get that sand and get that.
You can eat appropriately, then you don't get sand.
I don't eat on the beach.
I can't.
I don't like it when my food
pass.
is crunchy from the sand,
Yeah,
and it feels unavoidable. I feel like
I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like no matter what I do, I'll wash my hands. I eat everything right out of plastic containers and bags.
No, we're professionals. Ford's seen it. I mean, my brother's favorite is that Korean fried chicken on the beach, which you'd think is a disaster.
That sounds awful.
It's delicious. It's great. My mom will make pasta and send it to the beach. So sauce, and I can have rolls. It's awesome.
Pasta? I don't even.
Well, not a pasta, but just the salt, just a meat sauce. With some fresh bread.
Okay.
I thought it was a terrible idea when she first did it, and then
meat sauce and bread.
Yeah.
No noodles.
No actual noodles. No, that would be asking a lot to try and eat some spaghetti on the beach.
All right. We're gonna have to dig into this because I don't do the beach a lot. You do the beach a lot. So it makes sense that you're a professional when it comes to consuming food on the beach, but not specifically the consuming food part. Sorry.
Well,
I wasn't trying.
I have a history.
I am a professional when it comes to consuming food. Yeah. I'm not professional circumstantially on the beach.
You just got to watch out for the seagulls. That's the key. That's
Yeah. They do start to swarm.
Yeah, they start to swarm.
Yeah. Anyways, Memorial Day. Memorial Day is exciting. I always have to pause on Memorial Day and differentiate a little bit between members who have served and are still with us, and members who have served and died, either in the active service or have passed post-service, and that's the Memorial Day piece, right? It's a great time to honor everyone who is and has served our country, but specifically remembering those who have passed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Veterans Day is celebration of everybody who has served.
Yep.
Memorial Day specifically is a little bit more focused.
Yeah. Right.
Did you guys have people who have passed away in wars?
I don't.
You don't?
No.
Okay.
So I was going to ask you guys the same question. My family has very few members of our family who have actually served in the military. So I've got my grandfather served for years. My mom was an Army brat, grew up moving every couple of years. It was funny. We've talked about this, I think, before. My mom was born in Philadelphia, but I was born, and she met my dad in California. And oddly enough, we ended up an hour from Philadelphia. So, but no, I don't have any members who have served or have passed away during wartime.
How about you, Ford?
Yeah.
No, grandfather served, but no one that's passed away. And with our background, it's not a big component just because of pacifist role.
I mean, me personally, a lot of my family did serve. My dad was in Vietnam. Both of my grandfathers were Marines. Aaron's grandfather was a Marine. So there was a lot of them, but the only one that's actually passed away in modern wars would have actually been my grandfather's uncle. And that's who my grandfather was named after him. And then my dad was named after him. So and the story is actually in the basement of my parents' house, is a picture of him in his, like, the enlistment photo that you'd picture from like World War I.
Yeah.
And in the picture, he's 15 years old. He lied about his age so he could join World War I.
Early entry,
and next to it's the letter that they wrote. And it's really bizarre. Like in modern times, you hear about like the Marines come to the door. And I don't think they are overly specific. They just say, that he had passed in an honorable way or something.
Right.
And this letter is written, it tells how he died. Like he died in hand-to-hand combat. Like the gun failed and they ended up in like a fight with the bayonets on the end of the thing. And he killed the guy, but the guy also killed him.
Oh my
and they both
gosh.
and I always pictured like with that letter, because we still have the actual physical letter,
Yeah.
that like, my, whatever it is, great grandma got this letter and read like that her son was like stabbed to death. You know what I mean? It's like, that's
Wow.
probably more honesty. Like we talk about how, they say like, I had seen something recently that triggers my memory that said like, I'd like to take my kids to 1985, drop them off and see if they could survive a day. And like that sort of is an even bigger picture that you think of. Imagine getting that letter now, it would be viewed as like wildly inappropriate. But it was his commanding officer's job to explain to the family what happened to their son.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why my grandfather was named John after him, and then my dad after my grandfather.
Okay.
But Aaron's family had someone die in, I think, World War I, the Civil War, and the Revolutionary War. So in each of the wars up to World War II, nobody died in World War II. They served, but they didn't pass away.
Okay. Yeah.
So I have a little bit of experience with it, but the picture really makes it real, to see this actual person with the actual letter.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say that having that connection and having like the memorial, like the thing that represents how they served and how they passed. That would. And then
I mean, both my dad and my grandfather, when they passed away, had like the Army there, Marines, and they shoot the guns and hold up the flag. So even though that wasn't in war, it's really, it's something to be said, because anybody that steps foot into that environment, not just being in the military, but being in active service, I mean, they're putting their life on the line so that we can sit here and record a podcast on a random day.
Yeah. Do the things that
without them doing
talk
that,
about
we
the
don't do
beach
it.
or graduations or any of those things. Like sometimes you just forget that because it's usually, thankfully, it's so far away from us. I mean, we see pictures of it, but I remember Gulf Storm 1 or 2, and like you'd wake up because the middle of the night, the storm, they started the war, and you see like missiles flying and all that stuff because of, now they have news as part of it. Before they didn't, and you're like, oh, okay, but like it was in Saudi Arabia or wherever, over there, and you're like, oh, okay, but it doesn't tie as close home as because there's just been a bit of time between the
and it's
things.
a different time, but I mean, I think for me the closest it came was obviously 9/11 when when the realization, which it was a short duration if you think about it. I mean, overall maybe 9/11 took a total of 3 hours between when they realized something was wrong and they realized what had actually happened. But that was the feeling of like being under attack, and that's, my brother was at Rutgers, so he was very close to New York.
Yeah.
My parents were really nervous because you just didn't know, and you remember the silence and all those things. But that's as close as we've been, to actually having to deal with any sort of intrusion into the United States ever in our lives, certainly.
Right.
So it's hard to fathom what it's like, but there's people out there guarding the gates every day. So
yeah, which I am thankful for.
Yeah,
for sure. And you're right, because it is like we talk about it a lot in terms of being the start of summer, or having the extra day off on the a long weekend so that you can spend time with loved ones. But we gotta make sure we remember the intent, remember where it's coming from.
Yeah, and obviously it's a quick aside. So I've been fortunate that I've been in a few different venues where I had met with and trained with some of the Navy SEALs guys who have gone on from being Navy SEALs to get into different corporate trainings and other things. And one of the stories that really stuck with me was a Navy SEAL who told this story about that they got into an area, and like, I won't get into any more, I'll get into less detail than he did. but and they were in an environment that it was not ideal. And in order to remain hidden, he played basically an Arabian board game with 2 little kids for 6 hours, so that they could keep the parents quiet while they were hiding, but they couldn't inherently keep the kids quiet. So the parents understood, like, you need to not say anything.
Right.
So he played dolls and a board game with 2 little 6-year-olds all day. That was the commander of this Navy SEAL group. And he did it so that everything would stay calm, so they'd make it out, and it's just one of those things that you think, like, how unreal of an environment that was your life. But
right. Yeah,
that's the people that are keeping us doing everything we get to do every single day.
Yeah, that's intense for sure.
That is the interesting dichotomy of it. We started with celebrations and people graduating and stuff like that, and the day off, and people going wherever they got to go over this last weekend, whether it's north to the woods, south to the beach, or west or east to the beach. We know whatever
always east, friend.
Always east.
Unless you go real far west, then you might be better.
That's a different trip.
But I mean, that's the dichotomy of it, because there is those 2 different sides to the same coin as far as like understanding it and all of those factors. And so it really makes it unique, because it's like, oh, what'd you do last night? Oh, I did this, and then it's like, and then I know in our area, a couple of the parades and stuff to celebrate it got canceled because the weather was not great on
I had a really
Monday.
For a really odd, in my head, what started me to think it was, I ran out and I got hamburgers and hot dogs. We went down the shore, but we had a soccer tournament, so we got there later than we normally would. But we still wanted to, have a barbecue on Sunday afternoon, or maybe it was Monday. I don't remember which day it was, but I went to the store, and the lady in front of me was like, got her phone out, and I was too far away to hear what she actually had said. But as soon as like the very tail end of the conversation, I realized that she was a mom who had lost her son in, active combat. And she was showing the lady a picture of her son. And it was just we're going to grill hamburgers and hot dogs and celebrate that it's summer. And there's genuine people out there that are not celebrating, but remembering people they've lost.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think it's this area too, because a couple weeks ago I was in Norfolk, Virginia, which is big.
Yeah, it's big.
Big Navy town and stuff. And we're like eating dinner in a restaurant, and there's people in their, uniforms or whatever. I don't know. They have different, not the Class A's, but they were in their like blue, whatever, I guess from the carriers and stuff over there. It was just interesting because like we just don't see that around here in the same way. I mean, you might pass like a caravan of vehicles on the turnpike from time to time because there's places not far from us, but they kind of aren't in this direct area.
Yeah.
And so it's just neat. You look around and you're just like, oh, I walked into a Navy restaurant. I'm like, sorry, am I allowed to eat here? Because he's just like,
am I out of place?
A little bit out of place. But no, I think that, we're thankful for him. And, there's really nothing, verbally we can say things and stuff like that, but there's nothing really we can do except for, try and be respectful of the people that have served or are serving or have given the ultimate sacrifice of their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. My sons and I, every year we go to the college lacrosse national championship game on Memorial Day. And that's where sort of it like struck me as we were standing there, national anthem, and they do the big flag on the field, which is amazing. And they ask for all active members of the military to like remain standing so we can recognize them. And I thought that was awesome because it's so powerful, especially in a crowd, to see the number of people who have actively served. And that's the moment though where it struck me. I was like, oh man, like it's in remembrance of. I mean, absolutely. So we need to celebrate our veterans, those actively serving to protect our country. But that's the moment where it like struck me. I was like, we can't celebrate those who can't be here. We have to remember.
Yeah, to remember.
But, yeah.
Well, it was interesting. I was actually at a baseball game over the weekend, and they had how like most sporting events, they like recognize someone from the service. And the thing that struck me the most was that like during a game, people are doing all kinds of stuff, their phones or they're talking to people, but everybody stood up and cheered at the same, like to get 40 or 50,000 people to all of a sudden like focus on one thing when, everybody's doing 100 different things. It's pretty neat to see that there's still that, I know we've gone through some challenges, but still that level of respect for those people.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. It does seem to typically be one thing we can still unite around.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah, for sure.
How do we pivot from that to graduation?
That's one tough. Yeah.
I mean, you can spin to the young kids where Ford said about the 7 kids, and I did, the cards I commented on, and Tracy handed me all these cards to sign, and I was like, this is a lot of cards. And she was like, well, there's the kids that have interned, you have the kids out of BCTC that went through signing day and came on board. We have a couple other kids who came from Twin Valley and co-op programs. And that did strike me though as a different thing, as it completely aside from Memorial Day. It happened, before Memorial Day when I was signing those cards. And I was thinking, we talk a lot about how we built the company on younger people with very little experience, but with the want to be able to do it, the desire, and a lot of very experienced people who could teach these younger guys the path. And it was neat signing it to see that, 20 years in, we haven't lost that. That's going to be who we are, is to take these older guys. And the funny thing is going to be some of the older guys are now getting to be those guys who weren't young, but they were the few really quality guys we found that were experienced, but not older. Yeah. That came on in the first, that second of the 10 years, in that 10 to 15 year range. And we have a bunch of quality guys who we were lucky to have come on board, and they stuck it out with us through some growing pains. And as we figured it out, and now those guys are becoming the trusted guys who are going to guide these younger kids now, because now they're in their 40s and they're a little bit more experienced and they know what they're doing. And now it's become their time to teach these young kids coming out of school. So it's neat to see the second time that we're going to run it back and do it again.
Yeah. And we've talked about it for years. And Tracy's been with us like 3 years now, I think. And when Tracy started, she had asked me about, is that?
I think she's longer than that, because I think, is it next year?
Yeah, next year's
5-year
5
thing.
Oh, no, we just celebrated 4. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Next year's 5.
It's COVID after that all the time.
Everything is
everything happened 3 years ago.
Everything's 3 years, right? We just sort of skipped 2021. Yeah. No, but one of the things I remember us talking about when she was just starting 4 years ago, we were talking about how I thought, like, we should grow, or things that we should be doing. And I said to her, I'd love it if we could get to the point where we've got 5 high school kids who are not going to stay, maybe, but we are transferring knowledge to young people and showing them, we've talked about it a lot here on the podcast, showing them that there are career paths inside of excavation, construction, the heavy civil world that don't require that you go to college for. And I'm not, that's not a diss on college. My kids are in college or going to college. I think there's a path for that. I think that certain things that you want to do, it's the right path. And other things you could do without it and be just as successful and fulfilled. But I said, we need that. We need 5 kids. And when signing those cards, I was like, holy smokes, we got 7 kids. That's it. Now, I don't know.
Based on how many people we had at the point when you said that versus now, whatever the ratio, it's still a ratio game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's exciting. Yeah, it is. It's cool. It's cool to see young people be interested. First of all, it's cool that our folks get the opportunity to sort of transfer that knowledge, show them what it could look like. And yeah, some of them move on to other things. Some of them leave high school and are on their way to trade school, college, whatever it might be. And some of them stay. Some of them have said, yes, this is it. And Berg has been like an integral part of that learning process. And I'm in. I want to keep growing. I want to keep learning, which is cool.
I think the interesting thing when you said about that is like, we're celebrating the 20 years. Great. But like, so we've been doing the same thing for 20 years, give or take. And like to see these young people, like just so full of, it's a little bit reinvigorating, right? Because they're
excited.
They're ready to go take on the world. And it's, sometimes after a long time of doing something, you kind of get a little grind on and you're like, all right, but you see these, young kids coming out and they're like, whatever their plans are, they're just on the very start of the roller coaster. And it's like, all right, go get them, because it's, it takes all that positivity to make it through the other side. So you just got to keep on rolling with it.
Yeah, for sure. The power of enthusiasm, right? Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And people who are just starting the process is fun to see, because it's a big curve and they seem to be running head first right into it, which is awesome.
Well, I think we were talking back to the signing day we went to a couple weeks ago, and there's so many interesting factors to it. There's one side of it was so neat because there was probably 75, 80 kids going to different places. Some of them went right into some type of secondary education. Some of them were going to the military, as we talked about earlier, and some of them were going straight into some type of vocation. They had already known that. They knew where they were going. They already had everything lined up, which was pretty cool. But the interesting thing, too, that was like, oh, this is really neat. But it's like, this is a school that people probably already chose to go to this school for this reason. Like, so it'd be interesting to see how that would turn out. Like, what are the ratios if someone goes to a technical school versus a traditional school, and how many of them know where they're going afterwards and stuff like that? If, you're going to a graduation in a couple of hours, like, okay, if every kid had to stand up and say where they're going, what they're doing, like, what is that ratio in comparison to people that at some point during their high school career chose to go to a school that had a little bit more focused curriculum? Yeah,
for sure. I'm fortunate in that way. Being a school board member and coaching, I get to interact with a lot of young people, and it's fun to hear, like, at times their naive version of what happens after high school or what comes next. But some of them, like, very, like, intentional and purposeful and, like, and realistic. Like, hey, like, this is what I would like to go do. I'm not sure if that'll work. I'm gonna pour myself into it. Try and create the opportunity for success. We'll see what happens, kind of thing. And it's neat to have those conversations with kids, and they are kind of all over the spectrum. I mean, I know just from coaching and interacting with those kids and their friends groups, a handful of kids who are going right to college, a handful of kids who are going right to work, 3 or 4 who are going straight into military service of some sort. And it's it's
a couple undecided yet there too in there.
A couple
just to kind of spread it out.
I'm not sure. I don't know what comes next, which is honest too, right? Yeah. I mean, you're asking 18-year-old kids to, like, where do you go from here? And it's not that long before they realize that they've been trying to figure out the what comes next part longer than they tried to figure out the high school part. So
yeah.
Well, I think you're also at that point. I mean, I think we joke about till you're like 21. Those are the years that you're always trying to get to the next year, right? I mean, like, you're like racing. You're always like, well, can't wait to be 16 to drive. Can't wait to be 18 to graduate, give or take. Can't wait to be 21 for this, and this.
Yeah.
And then at some point, you're like, as an older person, you're like kind of coming to them like, just enjoy the ride, because it'll all get to the same place, but you're always in that hurry that you're like, forget what already happened, because you're already moving on to what's the next big piece of the puzzle.
I mean, I don't know, Dan. I've heard you say a couple times, like, I can't wait to be 50.
No, I've never said that. And it's coming. It's like a freight train. Everybody wants to have a party. I'm like, I really don't want to. This is not this may be a remembrance I would have. Not
this is more of a memorial.
This might be more of a memorial.
Memorial of the youth gone by.
Mara told me it means I'm halfway there. I was like, all right, that's, I guess, positive. I don't know how I'm supposed to look at that exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
hey, 100. I mean,
100. That'd be something.
Yeah.
It's going to have to be a quality 100, though. I mean, I don't want to be stuck like sitting in a chair being pushed around.
That's true.
Not going to happen.
Hopefully, you have the choice.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, no, I, being the oldest of the three of us, I do feel that way. That like you race to get to things, and that's sort of what strikes me about some of the young kids coming on board is they have an idea where they're going. Like, I feel like when I was, 14, 16, 18, 20, I was racing to get the things that I had no idea where I was. I was like blindfolded driving as fast as I could.
Right.
Trying to get, unclear where, but a lot of the kids, those 7 specifically, like they have purpose. Will they end up at Berg long term? Who knows?
Right.
Will they end up in construction or in the mechanical fields or in a different vocation? I don't know, but they have an idea where they're going and they're trying to achieve that. I think that at least when I speak for me personally, like my decisions were guided by some sense of what I wanted to do, not who I wanted to be. You know what I mean? It took me much longer to figure out who I wanted to be. And the funny part I feel like is once you get there and you know who you want to be, it was actually pretty simple. It didn't require many of the things that you were trying to like bolt on to make this thing. It really gets to be simple. It gets to be, I want to be able to spend time with your kids. You want to be able to spend time with your spouse. You want to be able to just do the thing you enjoy, which was probably the thing that you did when you weren't doing other things.
Right.
And for a lot of our guys, it's the mountains or hunting or the lake, and it's all you're trying to, you work all this time to try and get back to doing the thing that you were able to do when you didn't have anything to do.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's an irony to it. So be careful racing to nowhere. Figure out where you're going earlier, you'd be better off.
Well, and like the one thing I might tell my younger self if I could, right, was like to explore those other options, right? So I think about the 7 kids we're talking about here. And each one of them got to us through like different paths. It wasn't because they got a part-time job, checking people out at, Walmart or Target or McDonald's or wherever it might be, right? Each one of them chose a intentional different path. And we're fortunate enough to collide with those paths in some way, right? Yep. We put ourselves out there, they put themselves out there, all of those things. But it wasn't just like, hey, I'm going to get a part-time job after school. It's like, no, I'm going to go and my school's offering a co-op program or an internship program. And here's like a variety of organizations that are participating, or I'm going to participate in a career in technology school and got the opportunity to find a way to Berg construction and through that, which I think is fun. And I can speak like personally about it because my son's worked here for a couple of years now, and he started and he just needed a couple bucks, right? He was mowing lawns and sweeping the shop out and looking for ways to earn extra money. And as we had like different things that we needed, and he got exposed to different things, it became an internship, and he did a co-op, and he went somewhere else and did some of those things with skills he had learned here, which was really exciting for him because they found enormous value in it. Now he came back and he's going to do something similar for us until he goes off to school, or maybe even part-time beyond that. And he does, I think he said it to you guys but he credits like our granting him the ability to like experience things to now turn into what he thinks he wants to do. And it's not construction necessarily. He doesn't want to operate machines, but he's going to do something that we rely on here in different capacities. And he didn't get that exposure by getting a part-time job at McDonald's. So,
well, that and the one thing I was talking to someone the other day, and I heard it actually on another podcast. Was that reference time number 1? But it was really interesting. The guy said, some politician said, we need less philosophers and more welders. And he's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. He said, I would like a welder that can talk about Nietzsche and do some of this stuff because people get too focused on a singular path and a singular, we can't get started, but the world, like once you jump into a group, they kind of hone you in that direction. You can't be diverse and you can't understand multiple things. We survive not just the construction company, but the service trades in general on the fact that people at this point are so focused on whatever they do that they can't change their own oil. They can't change their own light bulbs. They can't, replace a window in their house or any of that type of stuff because everybody is so specialized that they don't have just a broad range of things. And so that's always the thing you try and think about is like, it takes the mosaic of your life has a lot of different twists and turns. And so if you're super focused, don't just knock everything out of the way to get there because you never know when that little thing, it might not be something you're going to do on the regular. It's not like you're going to change jobs, but you might need to know a little about this and a little bit about that type of thing. Cause it's amazing. We always joke about it being out here in farm country and you ask kids and they think that milk comes from the grocery store. Like, so they don't
right.
even have any
Yeah.
understanding of
How it arrived.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying they're going to become a farmer, but just
Right.
trying to have a broad base of information in your head to understand how certain things work is always useful. And that's the same way for these kids, that they might not stay in the construction, but at least they have a, if they want to put a deck on their back of their house, they'll at least know how to dig for the piers. And, so there's just little bits of information you pick up as you go along from all the different places you can hit it at.
Well, and it's, what's funny is it's not just that people have honed in on the thing, because currently there's more information available to tell you how to do anything in a way that you could probably do it, right? Like you could Google and
YouTube,
anything.
anything.
You could YouTube almost anything if you're willing to try it. So that the issue isn't that you couldn't do it, that like it's that you don't want to, you're not willing to. And then you piece together with that we have inherently made everything so complicated in an attempt to make it better that it is harder to use the actual tools, and a couple things come to mind. Every Memorial Day this happens. I go to the shore. We got to turn our water back on. Our house is a little cottage. It's amazing. And when I first met Erin, they would call the plumber, and the plumber would come turn the water on. Until one day I was like, well, why would we pay the plumber to turn the water on? And they were like, well, nobody knows how to turn the water on. And I was like,
That's what he does.
I was like, what are you talking about? You just turn it on at the street with the key. And they were like, well, you'd have to have, where does this key come from? They're probably picturing like a house key.
Right.
And I was like, it's in your garage. And they were like, what do you mean? And I was like, your great grandfather that built the house had a water key to turn that water on. It's in the garage. They're like, no. And I go in the garage, and behind all the rakes and shovels and this old man's
I thought it was
tools
like a broken shovel or something.
is this water key to turn the water on. So, Memorial Day, I go down there. First thing we do is got to turn the water on and turn everything back on, So sometimes it's not, but now a lot of that, like in my own house, I could turn the water off. But if I tried to find the meter, it's all electric now, it's all digital. So it's different. Like they want to turn it off from, their office.
Right.
So that was one thing I was thinking about. The other thing is you started to talk about the farmers with the milk is a quick funny aside. So Charlotte was at a friend's house who has a farm, has some, a farm. She lives in farm area. She has a small farm, and she has horses next door at the neighbor's farm. They were going down to feed the donkeys because they were taking care of some of the animals for the farmer the people were away. And Charlotte said, I was walking through the field, and on the side of the field, there was this big stump. And in the stump was an axe. She said, but what was weird was next to the axe was all chicken feathers. And so she said, I said to, her name is Jillian, the mom. I said not to Jillian, but she said to the mom, why are there feathers all around this stump with an axe? And she said, well, that's where the farmer has chickens. And Charlotte said, yes. And she said, well, that's how you kill the chicken, so you can have chicken. She said, or if it's like a chicken that was a really wicked chicken that was biting someone or something, maybe they'd have to kill the chicken. And Charlotte was, like, wait a minute, they're going to kill the chicken with an axe. And she's like, that's a really mean way to kill an animal. And then we went a little further. We talked about my great grandmom, who they had a farm, and she did not need an axe. She would just break the chicken's neck. But my great grandfather was a butcher, and so we spiraled down this road. And then I said, well, your friend Sadie, her grandfather owns Why Not Farms. We were just there. You bought steaks the other day. And she was like, yeah. And she was like, but those are cows that got old and then they died. And I was like, no, that's not how that goes, Charlotte. I was like, all his cows in the field, they just wait for them to get big enough. And then they, just like you harvest corn, like he has to harvest the cow and he butchers the cow. And Charlotte's face, she's a smart kid, but the realization of not that steak is cow, she knew that. And not that the cow had to die, she knew that.
Right.
What she hadn't thought about was that someone had to physically kill the cow.
Yeah.
When it wasn't time for the cow to die, but it was time for the cow to be eaten. Right. You know what I mean? And so that real world touch, is interesting. The girls all the time talk about why can't we do this or that? And they compare themselves to some of especially the Mennonite Amish kids when they see them out here on the buggies and driving tractors. And I always say, girls, those boys do more work before you're out of bed than you do all day. Those kids have been, shoveling shit for hours.
Yeah.
And you were in bed.
Yeah.
You're right. They can run the tractor, but that's because they know how to run the tractor. Mara just learned to run a lawnmower. It's just, we've lost touch with the real world of what it takes to just be alive and to live, and there is some tie-in to Memorial Day to that, that in the same way that we don't really know what it takes and what the sacrifice is that allows us to just live our lives every day. We're forgetting what it takes to just be able to make it, that you have water, you have electric, You turn on the propane or the gas or the electric stove and it works. Your air conditioning runs, your car starts, and not many people can fix any of those things anymore.
Yeah.
So it's sort of an odd connection that we've wound around to with the service industries.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's probably an okay place to wrap it up. I feel
Put a
like
bow on it, thankfully.
Yeah,
I was like,
I
I
was
can't
like-
take it any further because they tied it somehow,
I
tied
was
this
like, man,
together.
I think we could go back to each one of these conversations and continue for who knows how long. But,
Maybe another Memorial Day.
Yeah, but next Memorial Day, we'll
Labor
come-
Day, we can talk about
Come
it.
back to all these things. Thanks for joining us, folks. We hope that you got something from this, and we hope that you come back for another episode.